Welcome to the Academic Book Review. Today, we're looking at a piece of technology that's so deeply embedded in us, we barely even see it as technology anymore. Writing.
Exactly. And our deep dive today is all about how that technology, the simple act of putting words in a visual space, didn't just, help us record things.
No, it fundamentally restructured human consciousness itself.
That's the mission. To unpack how it gave us the very framework for things like philosophy, geometry, even the way we tell stories, things we now think of as just human.
And here's a hook that really gets you most of what we assume is just native to human thought, analysis, categorization, even a tight narrative plot. It's not.
It's a product of the technology of writing. We've internalized it so completely.
It makes you ask this really fascinating question. Imagine you're in what's called a primary oral culture, so it goes you with zero writing. How do you look up a fact?
You can't. The phrase itself would have no conceivable meaning. A word isn't an object you can find. It's an occurrence, an event. It only exists for a moment.
And that one difference changes everything. It dictates the entire way a culture thinks and remembers. So let's start there. In Section 1, the mind of a purely oral person.
The first thing you have to grapple with is what our source is called, the evanescence of sound. Sound is fleeting.
It only exists while it's going out of existence.
Right when I say the word permanence, the perma part is gone before I'm even finished. It's all motion, unlike sight, which is about stillness, about objects.
So that creates a huge constraint. If there are no external records, no books, no hard drives, any serious sustained thought has to be made memorable.
It has to be engineered to stick. Thought and memory are completely intertwined. You can't separate them.
And how do you do that? How do you make ideas stick?
Well, you can't have dry, abstract concepts. Your thoughts have to be wrapped in heavily rhythmic, balanced patterns. You use alliteration, assonance, and constant repeated formulas.
These empathetic and other formulary expressions.
Exactly. It's why you always hear wise Nestor or clever Odysseus.
They're not just, literary flair.
No, not at all. Those fixed phrases, those chunks of language, they were the very substance of thought itself. They were like the rebar, holding the concrete of an idea together so you could recall it.
Which means memory itself works differently. It's dynamic, not like a recording.
Absolutely. The work by Milman Parry and Albert Lord on the Iliad and on Serbo-Croatian epic singers proved this. They showed that oral poets aren't memorizing thousands of lines verbatim.
They're using these formulas.
Right, and they're stitched together a little differently at each telling. It's a remembrance of songs sung, as Lord put it. It's adaptive.
That makes a lot of sense. You're not aiming for perfect fidelity. You're aiming to preserve the core knowledge in a way that serves the community. Right now,
We even see this when poets try for verbatim repetition. There's a study of South African Xhosa poets. They were trying to be exact, and even then, they only achieved about 60% correlation between versions.
the rest is just improvisation based on those formulas.
So if memory is adaptive, what does that do to something like history? It leads to what's called homeostatic memory. The past is malleable.
Meaning, if a fact from the past doesn't fit the needs of the present, it changes.
It just quietly gets adjusted. There was a study of the Tiv people in Nigeria over 40 years. Their official genealogies were found to have changed to better reflect the current social power structure.
That's amazing. So the integrity of the present is more important than the integrity of the past?
For an oral mind? Yes. The function of the past is to stabilize and give authority to the present. If some old detail threatens that it's just dropped, you only keep what's relevant.
Okay, so if we look at the actual style that comes out of this, it explains why early texts that have these oral patterns can feel so strange to us.
They feel strange because they're not built on the analytic structure writing gives us. First, the style is additive over subordinative.
Instead of complex sentences with clauses showing cause and effect, they just string things together.
Exactly. They just use and look at the Douay version of Genesis chapter 1. It uses 9 introductory ands in the first 5 verses. To us, that's repetitive.
But for an oral culture, that's the essential chain linking the ideas together.
Then the style is aggregative over analytic. You don't just say the soldier, you say the brave soldier. You don't say the oak, but the sturdy oak.
You rely on those standard formulas,
Because trying to break that formula apart to analyze the concept of soldier in the abstract is a high-risk move. The cluster is what makes it memorable. It's the mnemonic glue.
and it has to be redundant, whereas the sources call it copious.
Oh, absolutely. Redundancy is a feature, not a bug. It keeps the speaker and the listener surely on the track because the words Spanish the second they're spoken.
And finally, the style is highly agonistic. It's competitive.
Yes, there's a combative quality to it. You see it in the gory details of epics like the Iliad. That's to keep you engaged on the edge of your seat,
But also in social interactions.
right? Like the verbal duel. You'd need to buy something at a souk in the Middle East or that classic Irish thing of answering a question with another question. You're always engaged in a kind of contest.
This entire dynamic is what writing completely disrupts, which brings us to section 2. Writing as this external technology that actually restructures the self.
And we have to see it as a technology. It requires tools, a stylus, paper, ink. Our sources call it the most drastic of the 3 big revolutions: writing, print, and the computer.
Why the most drastic?
Because it started the whole process. It initiated the reduction of dynamic living sound into quiet, static space.
And once it's in that space, it's permanent. A text that states something false.
Well, state falsehood forever. You can't argue with it. It just sits there saying the same thing.
Which is why Plato's famous critique of writing is so incredibly ironic.
It's astounding, really. You find it in his works, the Phaedrus and the Seventh Letter.
He makes the exact same 4 arguments against writing that you hear people making today about computers or the internet.
Precisely. 1, it's inhuman, a manufactured thing. 2, it destroys memory. It weakens the mind.
The old calculators will make you bad at math argument.
The very same 3. It's unresponsive. You know, garbage in, garbage out. And 4, the written word can't defend itself. It doesn't have the back and forth of real dialogue.
But the great irony is that his own philosophy, this intensely analytic, rigorous thinking, was only possible because of the effects writing was already having on the Greek mind.
His whole concept of an idea? It comes from the Greek root video. To see he's thinking of concepts as visual objects. That's a literate mindset.
So what made the Greek system so revolutionary? I mean, writing existed before then, right? Sumerian cuneiform was around 3500 BC.
It existed, but the Greeks did something with major psychological importance. They invented the first alphabet that was complete with vowels.
And the vowels were the key.
They were the key. It was a more nearly total transformation of the word from sound to sight. By giving a visual symbol to every single sound, including vowels, they could break language down into abstract parts more completely than anyone before.
And that new level of analysis is what unlocked everything else.
It implemented abstract into intellectual achievements on a new scale.
Which takes us right into section 3, the cognitive evidence. What does this technology actually do to your brain? And for that, we have to look at the work of Lev Vygotsky-Luria.
Luria's work in the Soviet Union in the 1930s is just a perfect natural experiment. He was working with illiterate peasants and peasants who had just become literate,
And the differences were stark.
night and day. It showed that the illiterate mind operates in a concrete, situational way. For instance, Luria would show them geometric shapes, a circle or a square.
And they wouldn't call them a circle or a square.
No, they named them after real-world objects. That's a plate, that's a mirror, that's a sieve. They were thinking about what the thing is or what it's used for and not its abstract form.
This leads to what you called situational thinking. The experiment with the tools is the most powerful example.
It really is. He sold them 4 items: a hammer, a saw, a log, and a hatchet. He asked which three belong together.
And the illiterate peasants always group the hammer, the saw, and the hatchet with the log.
With the log. Because in a real situation, you use the tools on the log. They grouped by practical application, not by the abstract category tool.
For them, the category tool was just irrelevant,
Completely. Thinking is always embedded in a real-life context.
and the biggest consequence of this is a rejection of what we would call formal logic. This is the part that really breaks your brain.
Loria would test them with basic syllogisms, premises that were detached from their experience. The classic example is in the far north, where there is snow, all bears are white. Novaya Zembla is in the far north. What color are the bears there?
And our literate mind instantly jumps to white. It's a simple deduction.
But their response was, I don't know. I've seen a black bear. Each locality has its own animals. They just refuse to play the game.
They wouldn't accept the premise because it wasn't based on their own lived experience.
Right? For them, that kind of formal deduction was not important, uninteresting, trivializing.
So literacy is what trains the mind to accept an abstract premise and follow it to a logical conclusion. It's the foundation of, well, everything. Science, math, philosophy.
And it completely changed storytelling. Oral narrative is naturally episodic. Think of the Iliad. It's not a single straight line. It's like boxes within boxes of themes that repeat.
Whereas the idea of a tight climactic structure, free tags, pyramid with rising action, a climax, falling action.
That's an invention of writing. It first becomes really visible in written Greek drama, where a writer can stand back, look at the whole story as an object, and arrange the parts for maximum impact.
And that new structure allows for a new kind of character.
Exactly. Oral cultures need flat or heavy characters, type figures, Furious, Achilles, Wise Nestor. They're memorable because they're consistent.
You remember the type,
But the round character, the one with the complex inner life, with psychological crisis, that character really only emerges with the novel. And that's supported by the itemized introspection that comes from sitting alone and reading a text.
which is a perfect transition to our final section print, and how it took all these effects and just put them on steroids.
If writing put sound into space, typography locked it down. Movable type was really the first assembly line. It turned the word into a uniform, reproducible commodity.
Creating this incredible sense of visual control of finality. A printed page looks machine-made. It creates this insistent world of cold, non-human facts.
And print gave us these new tools for knowledge. Things like indexes, which are only possible when page numbers are fixed,
Or title pages, which treat the book as a labeled object. And maybe most importantly,
exactly repeatable visual statements, technical drawings, engravings, maps. When you combine a perfectly repeatable image with perfectly repeatable text, you get the foundation for modern science. And on a social level, print really drove the turn inward.
it fostered silent, solo reading. This created a new sense of personal privacy, and also the idea of private ownership of words.
Which leads directly to our modern idea of copyright.
And this deep introspectivity is also what supported the great text-based religious traditions. Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they all depend on an internalized sacred text.
So where are we now in the electronic age? This is what the sources call secondary orality.
It's a fascinating concept. Electronics, radio, TV, the internet, they bring back that strong group sense, the global village feel of primary orality.
But it's different.
It's very different. It's self-conscious. It's a programmatically group-minded experience. It's planned spontaneity.
A perfect example is political debate. A modern televised debate is all about genteel, literate domesticity. It's timed, it's structured, it's all about concise points.
Compare that to the Lincoln-Douglas debates. They were unamplified. They went on for hours. They were highly agonistic and competitive. They came directly out of that primary oral tradition.
So, to wrap this all up, what is this single biggest takeaway from this academic book review?
that our most sophisticated modes of thought, our logic, our science, our sense of a deep inner self, none of it was a given. It's all a direct result of interiorizing the technology of writing.
We are, in a very real sense, text-formed beings.
And that leaves with a really provocative final thought for you to consider. Philosophy, logic, all the arts as analytics, studies, they all depend completely on writing. So if true philosophical thinking can't be carried on by the unaided human mind,
If it needs this external technology to even get off the ground,
then what does that reliance on an outside tool really say about the relationship between human consciousness and the universe itself? Our minds needed a tool to become the analytic instruments we think they are.